Now don't whine or pout, this Kirblog's about this massive ice skating anime. About this guy Yuri. He was born to make history. Hello, welcome to Anime April 2017 for Kirblogs. Today we're talking about a show that I am going to presumptuously assume I'm going to be asked about quite a bit to do one this year, considering the ones that I passed on last year. But I made sure specifically to watch this in the last couple weeks before and catch up with the rest of humanity. Today we're talking about Yuri on Ice, and I'm joined by two guests. Martine is back yet again. Hi.
It's the moment of cheese.
Is this a moment of cheese?
We were born to make lots of cheese.
Oh. And Mariana, who has not been on a Kirblog before, which is weird, because I've known you for 10 years and I've never had you on one of these, so I apologize for that. But hi, welcome.
Hello, welcome back. It's actually been 12 years, but who's counting?
Wait, 12? Fuck,
yeah,
it was
we
2005.
met in 2000.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I can't even believe that.
Neither can I.
No, it's bizarre.
It's kind of depressing. Let's move on.
Yes. Carrie, yes. We don't have to talk about Full Metal Alchemist fan clubs or anything. Okay. So I want to start things off with you guys, and I'm assuming perhaps your story here is the same. So I actually did not, as I was kind of implying, did not watch this show until just recently, and the show's been out for a decent while, I think now. I forget exactly when it
stopped. The final air date was on December 21st, I think.
Oh, okay. So not that long ago.
No.
So tell me how you guys got into this lovely show that has changed your lives and quite a few other people's lives.
I'm going to let Mariana take the lead on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, basically, we have this friend whose name is Rochelle, and she's our weeaboo friend, and she's super into anime, and like she has this thing where she'll watch like the first episode of every anime that comes out every season. So she was like, Mariana, you gotta watch this show, Yuri on Ice. There's lots of pretty dudes, and like I had seen pictures on Twitter when the first episode came out, and I was like, they certainly are pretty. I like that white-haired dude, that little blonde kid with his leg up in the air is cute, and but yeah, like, so she sat me down when the first two episodes had been out, and like,
I'm pretty sure her description of the show was something along the lines of, Mariana, this show, it kind of seems kind of gay, but lately, it might actually be gay.
No, because in the second episode, there was no way to tell. It was just very queerbaity, because, you know, they have the bit in the beginning where he's naked, and then the bit in the second part where he's like, oh, let's touch each other's faces. And that was all we had. I
just distinctly remember Rochelle being like, hang on, is this gay?
Well, that was like, yeah, that was my favorite part of the show, is when we got to like episode 5, and it was like, oh my God, I think this is gay.
Actually, like, for real.
Yeah.
Which is...
And Martin was like, when I was watching it the whole time, he was like, you're getting your hopes up. It's not going to happen. What if at the very end it's still not gay? And I'm like, but he said he loved him. I don't know what else to call that. But yeah, like I'd only seen the first like 2 episodes, and I was kind of into it, and I would watch it, you know, a couple days after it would come out on Wednesdays. And then when episode 7 finally hit, because again, episode 5 was where things started to take a very serious turn in terms of their relationship.
Yeah.
And then episode 7 happened, where, you know, the kiss happened at the end of the episode. And I was like, oh my God! Oh! I literally, like, Martin was were you in the room with me when it happened? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
No, but I woke up the next morning, and I rolled over and I looked at him, and I was like, Martin, they're gay. And I was obsessed with it. So yeah, like I've actually been watching since October, and then Martin, you didn't start watching until I
think episode 9 was the newest one, and I was like, it's obviously very important to you. I didn't want to go into it being like, I have to like this just to support my wife. I have to think this is a good show because otherwise she won't be happy. I was very open to the idea that I might watch it and then put it out of my mind like immediately. And it took a couple of episodes, maybe even 3 or 4 episodes for me to really get invested. But once I was on board, I was completely on board. And I was very doubtful at first, and I was very pessimistic about the whole thing. And I thought it was probably a lot of hullabaloo over nothing. But I think a lot of it is justified. I think that a lot of the positive feelings that people are getting from the show are definitely something that the show has done very consciously.
Interestingly enough, too, I kind of want to tie this into something a little bit regarding the concept of the show. So, had you guys ever seen much of any like sports? Because when you get really technical, it is a sports anime.
Yeah.
Had you guys ever seen any other like Haikyuu or any stuff like that before this, or was this your first like one you'd really actually gotten into?
I don't think
You'd
I
seen
had
Free?
ever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Free. Totally
I did see Free, but I don't really count that. I mean, I guess it is counting because they did focus on the sport and stuff. But yeah, Free is the only sports anime that I watched. Although since then we tried watching All Out, and that didn't end well. We started watching Yowamushi Pedal, and that one's cute.
Yeah.
I want to watch more of it. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I've not really watched. I know I watched a couple of episodes of that one football show with Yuka, but aside from that, like, I've never been interested. I've never gravitated towards sports animes. I feel like a lot of it is very samey, and that was one of the reasons I guess I was hesitant to think that I would enjoy Yuri on Ice as much as I did.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's interesting because this seems like it has become the most widespread, in at least the U.S. from what it seems like, even more so than Inazuma 11, which really didn't have much of a presence in this country at all. That was the one other sports anime that I was into for a little while, which was the football/soccer one we were talking about before. I was into that for a long time, and even that one I was surprised didn't take off nearly as much as I was expecting it to. But this one, it seems like it really has, and kind of even before we get into the stuff about the relationship, which is the meat of what I want to get into. Sorry, it's actually very, very accessible for a sports anime, because I've really, the only like figure skating stuff I've ever seen has been during some Olympic events and things. Once in a while, like when like my parents would see some stuff and they tune in and be like, oh wow, then I could at least like appreciate the artistry and the technical side of stuff with how hard people work at that. But surprisingly, from watching throughout the whole show, because I binged it pretty quickly in like the span of like a week or two, all of the actual like technical stuff of the ice skating side of things was pretty like easy to understand and pretty straightforward, and like it was balanced out well enough that like it didn't overshadow the actual character development side of things too much, and also that it was balanced, and that it was prevalent enough that like it feels like everything that happens with these characters and these careers that they're following matters very much, and you get like what their individual styles are and what their tastes are, with the music that they pick and everything. So, as someone who like really, I mean, like, soccer is like something that's really easy for people around the world to get into with, like with Inazuma, but with Yuri on Ice, I mean, like ice skating seemed like it was a little bit more of like, I don't know if like niche is the proper word for like a sport.
Esoteric, probably.
Yeah. But to see like so many people who, I would be presumptuous and say I probably didn't give a shit about that at all, being very, very much interested now because of the show, that's kind of incredible even just by itself.
It is. I mean, like for me, like I was kind of the same way, where I was like, I would maybe catch glimpses of Olympic events on TV and be like, oh, that's very beautiful. But I never was really interested in it. But I think the thing that makes Yuri on Ice so accessible is not just the fact that they don't really focus. They focus on the sports aspect of it, in that they focus on the jumps and the technical scores and all that other stuff, but it's not super heavy on like the training or the specifics of the sport. It focuses on the human relationships, and it focuses on, Yuri's struggle with anxiety, and it focuses on struggling with your worth as a performer. And it wasn't like watching the show as someone who spent a lot of time as a musician, I was relating to it very heavily in that regard. Like, I'm not a dancer, but I understand exactly, like, when you do opera specifically, because that's the thing I have the most experience doing in terms of music. When you're focusing on opera, you basically have 5 or 6 arias ready to go at any time, and you basically sing those 5 or 6 songs over and over and over again until they are perfected. And every single note, like, I cannot even tell you the minute amount of detail that you have to pay attention to when it comes to placement and breath control and everything else. And it's the same thing with, Yuri's quad salco, or, when he was trying to learn the quad flip or anything like that. It's all those changes in those jumps are so minute. It's like something as simple as, like, the difference between one jump and another jump is moving from the outside edge to the inside edge of the skate, meaning, the inside meaning the inside on the arch of the foot, and the outside meaning the outside, like the rounded part of your foot. Yeah, so, like, I understood, like, just how nerve-wracking those little, like, if you have one little tiny thing off, then everything is ruined. And you basically go to those competitions and you perform the same thing over and over again, and stakes get higher and higher. And that was just for me as a musician. I was seeing other people who were artists, like, traditional artists that were watching it, and they were saying, like, I totally get, Yuri not understanding that he has so much to offer. He's one of the top 6 skaters in the world, and he saw the fact that he came in 6th in one of the most prevalent ice skating competitions in the world. He saw that as a failure. And it's easy for us to get bogged down in our disappointments in ourselves when we and just ignore all of the accomplishments that we got on our way to this failure, Yeah,
so, and I think it's interesting too, because like I'm actually very glad you brought that up about just artists in general. I think that, like, with any kind of entertainment or art related career that you choose to embark on as your life choice, it's the sense of wanting to push yourself, and the sense of kind of like, either friendly or sometimes not so friendly competition between your colleagues, even people who you respect and know personally and are friends with or whatever. Like, there's still a lot of that goes into it. And I think that sports anime in general, but definitely with this one, as I had seen, with the kind of camaraderie between all these characters, and, like, Yuri himself kind of feeling Japanese Yuri, that is, feeling very kind of like a fish out of water and everything, as like someone with a lot of potential, but still, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of do, but I don't, but I do, but I don't. I have people that support me and people that want to see me fail, and it's like, oh God, it's like there is absolutely something about that I think any artist can fully relate to. I think from actually the perspective of both Yuri namesake characters to different extents.
Yeah. That scene where, like, Yurio in episode 9, where he, like, throws the Katsudon Piroshiki over to Yuri, and he's like, here, have this as a birthday present, and don't be hard on yourself, because I did better than you, and I still lost to JJ. And I have more reason to feel terrible, but I don't. So you should suck it up, and you should keep doing what you do. And, like, I really appreciated that, because it highlighted that rivalry. Because, I mean, Yurio's kind of a soon. Like, he hates Yuri, but he also loves Yuri, and, like, people on all the Twitter and stuff will joke about Yuri and Victor being Yurio's dads and stuff. But I just love that they highlighted that rivalry, but also had Yuri there to support Yuri in a moment of weakness, because, his support system was gone, meaning Victor.
One thing I think it's important to remember in regards to why the show has gained as much popularity as it has in the West is timing, because while a lot of other sports animes are about the competition, and you kind of watch it as an escapism to be like, oh, I got to root for my boys, I got to root for the team that I've supported for so long, and see how they do and make sure they defeat the other guys, and then see how they, congratulate each other at the end, and see where they go on to newer heights and everything. Yuri on Ice is a show not so much about competition, but it's a performance art, and as much as the ice skating goes, and it's about the competition within yourself, and it's about all the skaters basically supporting each other. You know, there's obviously, like Mariana says, there is the little rivalry of sorts between Yuri and Yuri, but at the end of the day, they're all working together and they're all trying to achieve something individually, but also the group. And this show came out at a very interesting time for a lot of people because regardless, and I'm not going to get specifically political at all, but regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum or what you believe in or what you don't believe in, the world that we live in the West, at the very least, is a very divided place right now. There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of emotional conflict, and a lot of people basically taking sides and, you know, sometimes being very hostile to each other. And this was a show that appeared at a time when a lot of people felt hopeless and a lot of people felt like the future wasn't very bright for them, and maybe, and even if they felt like the future was bright, they felt like they were on the opposite side from a large number of people, and that they had to win and the others had to lose. Yuri on Ice is a show that people can watch as escapism from that, in the same way that, you know, like a regular sports anime would be escapism from, you know, a much more passive existence. Yuri on Ice provided a very positive, very all-accepting world that people could go to and escape from the very high levels of stress that the political climate had us all in at that time.
For sure. You know, it's interesting too because and this is kind of also my answer to my own question of how I got into the show and why I was interested in it. So, and Mariana, because you've known me for a long time, I think that you've probably seen how, like, I think my outlook on some of this sort of stuff with stories has changed because, like, for instance, like, I think we even used to joke a lot about, like, Kingdom Hearts back in the day where, like, it's very clear that series is, and there's nothing wrong with this, that it's very intentionally designed that all the relationships between the different characters are intentionally ambiguous so that it's kind of up to the individual's interpretation, which I think that's great, and I think that there is a lot of value to that. But also, then I'm gonna make a call out here. As much as I enjoy the show for what it is, I also look at shows like, say, Voltron, where it seems like the new Voltron show is kind of like, I don't want to use the word yaoi baiting because that's not fair necessarily, but it seems very like, see guys, ooh, there's so much tension, and I'm just like, okay, that's great, or, you know, I don't know. Why don't you just actually make it that and not just like, ooh, maybe it's like, all right. And maybe that's also because, like, one, I feel there's a part of me that's like, why is it always got to be a sexual thing? And two, it's like, yeah, we've seen this before. You could also just go all the way with it. Like, so that was the big thing that really got me intrigued about the show, was because what I was hearing from you guys and, you know, the rest of the universe that had already watched the show was that it was, you know, a show that a lot of people were seeing that also wasn't like, you know, a hentai or whatever, that had a gay relationship with the two main characters, full display, canon, like a big part of the story. And I'm like, I so rarely ever get to see stuff like this. And especially knowing that so many people are watching this, like, that's great. I really want to see how this lives up to what people are saying. So finally, I bunkered down, and I marathoned the show a couple weeks back. And actually, it's a little bit relieving to hear what you guys were thinking in the very beginning, because I had that same fear where, like, those first couple episodes, I was like, oh, God, I hope this wasn't false advertising. Is it actually, or is it just like, ooh, maybe hot tub scenes and whatever? It's like, okay. But one thing that actually I was also relieved about in the beginning was that the show had a much nicer sense of humor than I was expecting. All the stuff that I had seen of it, you know, between like clips and just like screenshots and things, I very seldom ever saw any of like the kind of more funny, like goofy, kind of like chibi, whoa type moments or whatever. And the fact that like that stuff is pretty prevalent early on was like, okay, so it's not super serious all the time, like, because I was really just kind of seeing the beautiful side of it. And the fact that, like, okay, it is as rangeful as any show can be, like, okay, that's good to see. And like, you know, like Yuri Kotsky has, you know, plenty of funny moments. Victor is hysterical. Yurio is hilarious, kind of at his own expense, and which is why he's become my favorite. We'll get to him later. And actually that same moment by episode 7, I'll actually say though, before the kiss happened, something that I was also happy to see was even in the episode or two before that, with when Yuri was making his speech, about his relationship with Victor as just his coach. That was really cool to see, because it's like, okay, what this is fulfilling for me is that it is also not just about the sexual side. Victor's making all these, haha, jokey jokes about like, oh, do you want me to kiss you, or do you want me to be your lover? Is that where we're going with this? And I'm like, but like the fact that it was a complicated relationship beyond just like, we're dating now or whatever, like that made it all the more satisfying when then finally the kiss happens and it's like, okay, now it's official and now this is a thing and this is really cool and there's a lot of depth to this. And it's not just like, maybe the basic kind of things that I was maybe expecting, or I don't know what I was expecting necessarily. So that halfway point was what I was glad that I stuck out for. I intended on watching the whole show anyway. But yeah, that was the big moment, that same kind of turning point where it's like, all right, I'm in, we're good, we're here. So
it's funny too, because like, especially in the beginning, we're all used to the queer baiting thing where it's like, oh, are they, aren't they? Oh, let's have him touch. Oh, that's a little gay, isn't it? Whoa. And it's funny because, we talk about how explicit and canon and whatever Yuri and Victor are. For some people, like what was in the show still wasn't enough. And there were people complaining that the kiss was quote censored and blah, 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 that it wasn't as explicit as they wanted it to be. And it's just interesting to see the full range of reaction that this show has brought out in people who watch it, because, there are always going to be people, like for me, I'm used to just like, I've been a Fujoshi for fucking years. I'm trash, whatever. Like, but back in my day when I read gay stuff, like it was either yaoi or it was Clamp, because all Clamp ever did was have those super vague things where they would hang out a lot and they would have meaningful glances, but nothing would happen. But they were totally together, but we can't have anything happen. And like to even have an implied kiss, and like I liked the fact that the kiss wasn't explicit, because it didn't need to be shown. And the creator, when she talks about that specific scene, she says, like, I want people to interpret that gesture however they feel comfortable interpreting it. So if you feel more comfortable interpreting it as a kiss, for it. If you feel more comfortable interpreting it as a hug, go for it. And I think she did that to, like, make people who maybe weren't as comfortable with homosexual relationships feel a little more okay with what was going on, to sort of trick people who might have been more homophobic into liking the show and rooting for those characters. And by the time they went full on gay, it was too late. They already loved them, like, but yeah, like and it's funny because the scene before his happens in the parking garage where Yuri's like, I'm freaking out because I'm worried that you want to leave me, Victor, and you just kind of actualize that fear by threatening to leave me if I didn't make the podium. That really worries me. And Victor was like, well, do you want to kiss to like calm down? And you're like, no, I don't want to kiss. I just want you to stand by my side. And like that was something that really hit close to home for me. And because, it really isn't like, relationships are not about kissing. Relationships are not about sex. Relationships are about the dynamic between two people who love each other. And regardless of whether or not they hugged or kissed in the next scene, it doesn't matter because we already have them. We already have Yuri expressing these complicated feelings for Victor. We have Victor there supporting Yuri, every step of the way. And we have both of them unlocking their potential in these fields that they excel in. And they're just for each other. I fucking love them.
No, I mean, and that's what's great about it too, because like I think to go back to my earlier bit about my frustration with a lot of like the I'll say ship baiting, because I think it applies to everything, like no matter like what you like,
said ship, right?
Yeah, ship baiting. Yes, thank you, Martin. I think that because like, and it doesn't matter like what like sexual orientation or combination or whatever it is. It annoys me when it's made into like a novelty and not like something that actually serves the story, because it's just like, we just want people to fantasize about what characters they want to see fucking, and it's like, okay, that's great and everything, and like, have fun with that. I'm not going to hate on you or whatever, but it's like, but that's what I mean is where like, when I say I want it for real, like give me something, come on already, you know, like, and because it's a tough balance, because when you have, you know, especially something like this with a lot of different characters and a lot of different complicated relationships between each of them, again, I think that there is some there's some value to when stuff is left open to interpretation, like what you were talking about with the kind of off-screen, you know, quote unquote censored kiss or whatever. I don't see why people would put it that way. That's silly. You know, like stuff like that. I think that is, and also there could be something artfully done with that too. But the fact that like at the end of the day, this was like, okay, this is it. This is the story. This is the connection between these characters, and this is like part of what the whole development of all of these characters is related to and everything. Because if anything, also, it's almost kind of like what everybody in the show's relationship to Victor. You know, Yuri has the deepest with his with Victor, but everybody, you know, all the main characters in the show have some kind of incredibly important connection, whether it's like inspiration or just like I'm a fan, or you know, I'm a friend of yours, or I was trained by you, or I trained you, or whatever, you know, or like the bitter rivalry or the friendly rivalry or whatever. Like it's funny because despite the show being Yuri on Ice, it really is, when it comes down to it, like it's all about everybody's connections to Victor. Kind
of. I mean, in my opinion, the show is just, it's about love, period. Mm-hmm. And like, because, you know, you have Eros and Agape, and those are two different forms of love. And then you also have like Mickey and Sala, or Sarah, whichever, aka sister fucker and sister fucker. Like, you know, you have that, and you have Yakov's relationship with Victor and his students. You know, he loves them, but it's a very tough kind of love. And you also have
JJ's relationship with himself.
Yeah. Self-love.
We'll get to him soon, Martin.
And like in the I think it was episode 12 or whatever, where they were talking about how Yuri has developed and become this basically beacon, this new it boy of skating, because of his connections with other people and because he's opened up to other people. Because in the beginning of the show, he's very closed off again. He thinks he's self-sufficient and he doesn't need anyone else, and that he made it here on his own. And he did, but by being hostile and by turning away help from people that he thinks are below him, he is only hurting himself. And when he opens himself up to notes from other people, and when he starts asking for help from Mila and from Lilia and from Yakov, that's when he really blossoms and breaks the world record and everything else. And Yuri has that exact development because he was able to open his heart to someone else, because, you know, his anxiety kind of kept him at an arm's length from everyone that he knew. And, you know, when episode 4, when he actually opens up and he gets in touch with that old friend from college and asks her to redo his song so that way he can express who he really is on the ice with an appropriate soundtrack. Like, that's when the wheels start to turn, and that's when he starts becoming the better version of himself. You know,
and the name of that song is Yuri on Ice.
But the show is about just, you know, opening yourself to new experiences and to all different kinds of love, not just, you know, romantic or platonic or sister fucking.
For sure. And I think, you know, like, I think that these three main characters were so incredibly strong and well defined in what all their paths were. They were well balanced in that they could be serious and fun and funny and like super emotional and like, you know, goofy 1 second with like the, you know, the chibi style like jokey stuff, and then like, you know, gorgeous with like the I mean, I know it's rotoscope, but like the fully like heavy frame animated sequences of them doing the skating stuff and all that. Like I was really into everything that was going on with both Yuri's and Victor throughout the whole thing. And it's funny, too, because all the other it seems like the same kind of impression I've gotten from, my deeper experience with Inazuma and then the little bit of stuff that I've seen of other sports anime where, like, there's so many other characters and you don't always necessarily get to explore a lot of what they're all about, but you get just enough of a sense of their deal that, like, you really see, okay, that's what the whole thing is about, which is why I understood. Because at first, Martin, I remember, like, I actually didn't get, was like, why does Martin like JJ so much? And then by the end of the show, I was like, okay, now I got it. Now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't even always like get those kind of like, this is my favorite character, and I'm like, really? There's like not a whole lot to like grasp onto sometimes, but and also sometimes it really is just like that little bit of relatability, like, which is what I want to get into regarding our favorite characters and why. In fact, actually, Martin, why don't you start? Because I'm actually curious. So,
well, JJ, I didn't even like him that much leading into the episode 11. Is it when he has his problem?
Yeah.
I don't remember like being like a huge JJ fan until that happened. I thought he was kind of funny, I guess, and I liked the guy voicing him in the Japanese, but like. I didn't have a very strong gravitation toward him or anything, but I ended up really falling in love with the character because, and I guess it's a spoiler, but we were spoiling pretty much everything in this thing. But
if you're watching this, you've fucking seen it, for God's sake. Like, carry on.
Like his, he shows up in like episode 8, and like he gives like flawless performances every single time. Like he's going for the the Triple Crown. He's going for like the Grand Slam.
Sweep everything.
He wants to get like every award and be like get gold in everything, and he's like well on his way to doing it, and like he always goes out and puts on like the best performance he can and blows the crowd away, and then like it's effortless to him, and then he gets to a point where he's in the Grand Prix final. Is that what it is? And he chokes. He has his he gets out on the ice and he's like, it's business as usual. And then the pressure is too much for him because, as you learn in episode 12, it seems that he's turned away a lot of professional advice in favor of just of making his style his own. Mm-hmm. And that's why I guess his parents are his coaches, because they're the only ones who love him for who he is and would support him doing what he wants to do with his skating routine, no matter what it was, because they love him and because they love him because he's JJ, and JJ feels similarly, of course. But I identified with him a great deal in just that moment where he was sort of cracking under pressure, because I mean, I'm sure you guys have felt this way too, to an extent, when you get to a certain point where you feel like you've put all this work in, and then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to show people what I can do, and then you sort of buckle and you don't do nearly as well as you'd hoped, and you feel like it's the biggest failure you could have possibly done, which is not true, because the biggest failure would have been not to get out on the ice at all. Mm-hmm. But like it really resonated with me, because as a human being, I've always been very proud of the fact that a lot of what I've done has been just because I saw something I really wanted to do, and I put all of my effort and my imagination into making that thing happen and making it happen the way I wanted it to happen. Like I do this Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged show, and like I could have done that I could have brought on other people to work with me, but I just was like, I'm having fun doing this the way I want to do it, and maybe it's a bit egotistical, but I'm really liking this, and other people seem to resonate with it, so I feel like I've got something special here, and it feels like it's because I put something of myself in this. Mm-hmm. And JJ is very similar. He literally is like shown in episode 12, like pleading with what's his name, the other coach, Celestino. He's like, no, you don't understand. I want to do JJ style. And Celestino's like, no, you got to learn how to be a professional. You got to learn the basics first. And that's why he has that breaking point in the finals, because he just hasn't prepared for it. Mm-hmm. But he still is able to have his own victory, because even after he fails, people cheer him because they love him, you know? And it's really difficult to confront and acknowledge something like that, you know, it's possible to do everything right and then fail. And it's also possible to fail but still have the support of people who love you.
Yeah.
And that's just something that the show gave me, that it was important at that time.
I totally get it. Yeah, I know. By the time I finished the show, I completely understood it. Like, I think that JJ's like kind of brand of like tension and pressure that he goes through is it's very specific. It's very unique compared to a lot of the other characters. And I think that, especially, for like what it is that like we do, and like when you have a lot of people like expecting certain things from you, I think that definitely makes sense. And I grew, because I remember like we had a discussion recently about some stuff I won't go into, but you were telling me about this moment before I got up to it where like he shows up and everybody's just like, and they'll just like go away and they're just like, yeah, fuck off, guy, or whatever. It's like,
the straights are here.
Yeah, but it's not quite that, but yes, that too. Once I was kind of getting a wider perspective on him, I was like, okay, yeah, now I think I understand why like Martin connects with this guy so much, and like specifically to like his life and this character's life and etc. And I grew to like him a lot as well. Mariana, who's your favorite character?
Oh, Pachit. He's my little summer child. He's so beautiful.
Yeah,
I love him. Yeah, Pachit. Well, I love Pachit. I love Chris. Like when it comes to the secondary characters, like Pachit is just, he's so positive and he's so perfect, and he doesn't care what he does. He just cares that he's doing it. Mm-hmm. And something I learned watching the show, I didn't know this until I was like researching it, but Thailand actually only got a professional skating league within the last like 20 years. Mm-hmm. I think the rink opened up in like 1998 or something like that, because Thailand is a tropical country, so obviously they don't even know what ice is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the fact that he is from Thailand and he made it to the Grand Prix final, you know, they say a lot in the show, like he is the first Southeastern Asian skater to make it to the Grand Prix final. That's a huge deal. Like he's literally writing history in that show for his country, and that's a big deal for him. And I mean, Chris I love because he's so himself. He's disgusting and I love him.
He is probably the funniest character in the whole show.
I just love how much episode 10 changed his character, because like at first when he's introduced you think he's disgusting because he's like feeling up Yuri and he's coming everywhere and like he's just being a sexual deviant. But I mean, if you strip down half naked and pole danced with someone, you would feel comfortable touching their ass and asking why they didn't invite you to dinner, you know? It just but since Yuri didn't remember that, it kind of changed that whole interaction, and that was really eye-opening in terms of like, you know, the power of context and stuff. But ultimately, I think my favorite character in the show is Victor, just because like, I don't know, like he was sort of an enigma at the very beginning. Like he came off as this sort of cliche where he was just sort of the most amazing person in the world, and he was going to come and instruct this guy for the sake of the story and blah, blah, blah. And we weren't really getting any insight or any like, we didn't really know anything about him as a person. And, you know, a lot of people were like, he's faking it. He's really trying to use Yuri for something or whatever. But when you go when you get deeper in and you realize he was just head over heels in love the whole time, like that says a lot about him, because he was sincere from the first moment, you know, and he's always been sincere.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who has achieved worldwide success 5 times over, and he's still so humble, and he still takes the time to talk to everyone that wants to talk to him. Like in I think the second episode where he shows up to, or the third episode where he shows up to the Hasetsu rink and all of the press is there. And he's like, well, I was planning on a quiet day, but I'm going to smile and accept interview requests anyway. Hello, everyone. Like, he rolls with the punches, and there's really, he never worries, and he never is upset by anything, because he knows that he can do anything. And it's that cool confidence that's balanced with that, very humble. I mean, he's humble, but he's not, because he makes those kind of mean comments, and he doesn't think of them as mean. He just thinks of them as the truth, because they are the truth. And he doesn't have a lot of tact because he doesn't need tact, because he's Victor fucking Nicky Ball.
Because he's the best. Yeah, he could just be like, no, that flip sucked. Do it again.
Yeah. And I really love that about him. I just love how many layers he has to this, he's a very smiley, happy guy. And that's something else that I kind of related with him as well, was that, I felt that I was Victor when I was younger, because I was this very over-the-top, happy-go-lucky, very happy person, and I knew that I could do whatever I wanted to, and I would be successful at it, and I had all of this momentum, and I was achieving what I wanted to achieve. I didn't win 5 gold medals, but I managed to start a career in voiceover and everything else, and but unfortunately, I, in my old age, have become jaded, and I have not had. I don't think I've maintained Victor's cheery disposition. But another thing that I really identified with was sort of his my interpretation of why he wanted to leave and become a coach is because he was kind of jaded with where he was at. Like, he felt stagnated because he was like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I'm winning, and I love winning, but it's boring, and there's no challenge in that. And ultimately, he wants to have fun, and it's not fun to win over and over again. So Yuri coming in and asking him to be his coach was like the perfect thing at the perfect moment, because he was looking for purpose in his life. He kind of felt like he didn't have any, and Yuri gave it to him. And yeah.
You just reminded me, by the way, Martin, I remember another thing you told me was there was a particular moment, I think, regarding Victor, that you said for me to be wary of, because it might completely change my perspective on the character.
Yeah.
I was looking for it, and I actually didn't know what you were talking about.
Well, it's the moment in episode 10, is it, Mariana?
Yeah.
In episode 10, after the titles finish rolling, which has the great party scene from the after the is it after the Grand Prix final the last year?
Yeah, the banquet.
Yeah, they're all drunk, and then it shows. And this whole episode has been from Victor's perspective, so it's a very interesting take on the show, even just by that standard. But then after the titles roll, you see drunk Yuri clutching Victor, sort of gyrating against him like a goof, and he says, "Oh, please come be my coach. Please come teach me." In a drunken state, and he doesn't remember doing this. And the reason that it gives you a different perspective on Victor is because, like Mariana said, those early moments in the show that seem very queer-baity, where Victor shows up naked in the bathhouse and is like, "I'm going to be your coach," wink, etc. And then when he's like, "Let's sleep together," and stuff like that, and he's being very forward. His behavior, when you first watch the show, seems very tropey, and it seems very queer-baity. But when you realize that, and it's based on the story that is it Yuri that tells a story about the you'll have to say it, Mariana, because I don't remember exactly how it goes.
What are you talking about?
The one about the lady coming to town.
Oh, the Playboy town. Yeah.
The Playboy, yeah.
Basically, Yuri, in his mind, when he saw the story of the Eros performance as a man who was a playboy, and he came into town, he swept all the ladies off their feet, and he seduced the one lady that was like the catch to be all catches, and then he just leaves her behind. And in our minds, as we're watching, because we have this unreliable narrator, we think that the playboy is Victor, and that Victor is going to leave Yuri behind. But it turns out that Yuri was the playboy the whole time, because he came on to Victor, and then Victor shows up
very
and is
forward.
Yeah, Victor is like, "Hey, man, I'm here to pick up where we left off. It was a lot of fun." And Yuri's like, "Who the fuck are you? Why are you in my house?" And I mean,
it explains a lot
really...
of Victor's behavior and reactions earlier in the show. If you go back and rewatch it and understand that Victor has been seduced by Yuri unwittingly, and is basically trying to understand that because initially he probably feels that Yuri is spurning him and that he's lost interest in Victor, but when you listen to their conversations, a lot of the context changes as a result of what you know has happened in the lead up to it, because Victor is trying to feel out exactly where he stands with Yuri, not just as a coach, but, you know, as a potential love interest or even just a friend. He doesn't understand because Yuri has sent him these very strong mixed messages, and it gives you an appreciation for Victor because he didn't just show up and be like, "We ain't banging. Well, I'm leaving." You know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the photo gallery on the iPhone of the drunken party is one of my favorite scenes in the entire fucking show because it's hysterical and has so many good drawings. The pole dancing is mwah. Honestly, when that twist was really funny and cool and made perfect sense to me. That, like, of course, this guy who's super sheepish and, like, doesn't know how to express himself and etc., under the influence of alcohol would finally just be like, "I want you to be my coach because I think you're the best thing since fucking anything ever." And I'm like, of course. And then, of course, with the way that Victor is, by the time that we've gotten to know him in 10 episodes by that point, it's like, of course he would see something, like, genuine and honest and loving about that. And it's like, okay, yeah, you know, if anything, what I remember, without even realizing that was the scene you were talking about, that was the scene that gave the full clarity of, like, yup, that's these two characters. That absolutely makes sense to me. So,
but I like, and that bit after episode 10 made that conversation, because, like, the conversation that they have on the beach in episode 4, where Victor is like, "Do you want me to be your dad? Do you want me to be your friend? What's going on here?" Like, I thought it was kind of jarring at first. I thought it was just playing into more of the tropes of the gay but not gay genre. But when you watch episode 10, you're like, shit, he really is literally just trying to sit down and understand where things are going forward. And he's totally fine moving their relationship at just a professional level. But he wants that personal level if Yuri's willing to give it to him. And I just love them.
It's such a great balance of, like, because he's kind of mysterious. He is this, like, untouchable enigma, like, within the world that he's that he's on this pedestal for, with all of the other side characters, like, look to him like he's like this shining golden god of figure skating. And despite the fact that he has this kind of, like, air of mysteriousness to him, he is also just like, no, I'm me. This is me. I'm just purely honest and straightforward and real about all of my shit. And it's like, and I feel like I got that from him, like, from episode 1. Like, even with some of that, like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, but I liked him right away from episode 1.
It's hard not to, because he's just so sweet. And yeah.
That said, my favorite character, and it's so weird because both on the note of, it seems like intentional edgelords have come very much into style lately, and everybody is just like, the character who's like, I'm going to be the winner. And the response is not like, yeah, he's so cool, I relate to him, like Shadow the fucking Hedgehog or something. No, it's like, aw, he's so cute, he's so dark and brooding, that's adorable kind of thing. It's like, that's the thing now I'm noticing with a lot of anime and cartoons and games and movies. It's very strange. That said, but also, weirdly enough, I guess if you want to get really, really technical, Yurio is, I guess, kind of the closest thing that the show has to an antagonist, even though he's not black and white. He's certainly not a villain by any sense of the imagination, and he's really as much of a rival. Maybe he's like the biggest one, of all of the collection of characters from these different countries and things. And yet, he was the one that I really latched onto the most from those first couple episodes and all the way up into especially his last bit at the very end. Much like Victor and Yuri, I felt like he had a lot of range, despite him coming off as like the that type guy. The fact that he could still be funny, more so just kind of at his own expense, like dealing with like the fans wanting to dress him up in cat ears and shit.
Oh my god.
And his kind of fun relationship with his, I think was his grandfather or his dad, I think.
Grandpa.
Who was making him the pierogies and stuff, and and just like his whole kind of like anything you can do, I can do better type shit with actual Yuri. It's like, I don't know. He was just so like, and it's funny because I can. You were saying in your older years, you're seeing yourself as more jaded. I'm seeing myself as more of like, even though Martin, I was joking to you about My Hero Academia, where like I wish I wish I related more to Izuku, but I find at times I'm a lot more like Bakugo, where I'm just like no, I'm good, and shut up everybody, you don't get me, you don't understand, and I'm insecure about fucking everything. I see that in Yuri. Yuri is a little more likable than Bakugo, but and then some. But yeah, I mean, and seeing his, like his inner frustration, like, even like with JJ, when he's thinking about JJ, and he's like, oh, this shithead, and all of that.
In the middle of a performance.
Yeah, literally, and yet he's still holding it together, and he's doing great, and it's like, oh, God, like, I get it, you stupid, adorable little Russian kid, and I want to just, like, do that, like, what are you doing? Like, you pat your head, yeah, not noogie, but like you put your hand on their head and you just like scruff on their hair. It's like, no, stop it, get off. And because he would do that. The big moment at the end that was the ultimate payoff, though, was just like, I mean, his final performance was fantastic, and the fact that he just fucking breaks down crying at the end, I was just like, yep, I'm there, I'm in, yep, like. That was, I think, actually, that was the biggest payoff, even beyond the Victor Yuri stuff. That point, I think, for me, and what I really related to was just like, oh God, I get it, Pletsky, Plazetsky, sorry.
I really do. I mean, like, I hate Yurio, but I love Yurio. Like, there are very few characters that I actually legitimately hate. There are characters I love to hate, and Yurio is one of them because he's just such a shithead. Like. But he's a teenager, and teenagers are the worst. I'm sorry to any teenagers that are listening.
But, know.
I was a teenager once, and, like, your moods are all over the place because you just can't. Everything is so stressful. It's the worst time of your life. And Yurio has all that extra stress of being one of the world's greatest skaters on top of going to high school and everything else, which thank God we don't focus on that because, blah. Mm-hmm. But, like, I just love how much he goes, how far the pendulum swings with him, because like he literally in the first episode or the second episode when he like comes to fucking Hasetsu and he's like walking around town and literally his strategy for finding Victor is to go somewhere and scream Victor until somebody pays attention to him. Which, by the way, I tried utilizing that in a Chinese airport. It did not work. But
was
like,
that why you was great?
I just love, yes.
Oh.
But I love that whole little intro scene of him walking through Hasetsu where he's like, Victor! And like, but like 2 minutes earlier, before he gets pissed off, he like sees a statue and he's like, oh, that's cool. And then he hums a little song to himself while he's uploading it. And he's like, oh shit, I can't upload this because that'll reveal my location and I'm a super spy and I need to be secret about this. And then 2 minutes later, he's uploading a picture of himself in a tiger sweatshirt. Like, this is cool enough. Like, this picture of this weird statue is not cool enough for me to compromise things. But this fucking sweatshirt is the bomb. Like, I just don't. And I appreciate that he humbles himself later on in the show, though, like by asking for help and by just giving himself to the art and focusing on the art because, he's such a shithead. He was so cocky.
And he wins. He's the winner, ultimately.
Yeah. And which actually, I think the fact that, because it's like one of those things, I went on and on about this forever. I did a one about Pokemon X and Y a while ago, and like when people complain about like, why doesn't Ash ever win the fucking Pokemon League? It's like, it's the same kind of thing here where it's like, yeah, if Yuri Kotsky won, I feel like that would have been like, oh, yeah, all right, I guess just everything happens to work out for the main character because they're the main character. I think the fact that, I think it made sense that Yuri wins the love in that way, and Yurio wins the love of because I think the love of his life was just his craft, and the fact that like he gets to that point after busting his ass, over the course of that entire story, and then like he He's like, he knows he won. He knows he got it. I feel like that's why he just starts breaking down and crying. Is that I made it. I finally got, after all this fucking time of like killing myself doing this thing that I care about more than anything. I finally got it. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Like,
yeah. Well, and I think he had a lot of conflicting emotions too, because obviously that whole thing was him challenging Yuri to come back because Yuri wanted to retire, you know, because Yuri's a fucking idiot.
I
love Yuri, but damn.
Oh, well, yeah. I also, this is a little stupid moment, but I love when, one of the early episodes when Yuko, with the mom with the triplets, is he's like super fan. Fucking comes over. And
oh my God!
And her nose is bleeding. This is like
I love those two. I really think they make cute best friends. Because for whatever reason, the first time I saw the show, I did not realize that Yuko, the girl who was introduced in the first scene, was also the mother of the triplets.
Yeah, no, me either. Yeah.
I couldn't put two and two together. So, like, my first watch through, I was like, oh man, I think Yuko and Yuria would make a really cute couple. And I didn't realize that she was like 29 and he was 16.
And married to the guy that runs the place.
Yeah. That was kind of embarrassing. But
no. I think because at first I thought like, oh, is Yuko going to be like the love interest character that it's going to be like the bait and switch like with Yuri Kotsky, and then it was like, oh no, I just didn't even realize that's what was happening. I just love that part because it's like his like stone face reaction, and then fucking Micah, so sideway, texted later. He's like, "You're leaking all sorts of fluids." This is my fucking favorite line. I guess to kind of, as we're sort of getting to the end here, so, this had a pretty good beginning, middle, and end, and much to my surprise, it seemed like they kind of left it open maybe for more, but I'm curious to you guys, because you've been more kind of like, I'm assuming, in the fandom of this, when it was happening, when it was coming out at the same time. Has there been demand from people, or are people generally kind of like, no, this is fine, we don't need any more? Like, I don't know, I'm curious.
Oh my God.
I mean, Mariana, you're the one who actually participates in the fandom. I have not done that myself.
I mean, I lurk on Tumblr on the tags, but that's about it because I hate Tumblr.
But it's huge over there, right? I mean, in Japan especially, like it was the #1 anime of 2016.
Yeah, like it topped DVD sales charts. The merchandise is sold out in Japan. They can't manufacture it fast enough, and like it's crazy. It is an international phenomenon. Like it's very, very popular. And but yeah, there's absolutely more demand. And something, it does have a good beginning, middle, and end. I like the way that things end up. I just don't like the way that we saw them end up, because I feel like they wasted some time with cameos in the last episode specifically, and like because like the guy who was like interviewing Victor in the very beginning of the 12th episode, that's actually a real skater, and that's why he was speaking French, because they flew him in from, I'm pretty sure he's French, I don't know, but they flew him in to do this cameo, and then they showed Pachit's routine again, and they doubled up or added a lot of unnecessary stuff in that 12th episode. So I felt like it was very disconnected and kind of a little too avant-garde for my taste, because like Yuri on Ice has always been just about pure positivity, like from beginning to end. It's about trying to find the positive in the negatives and pushing through so that way you can keep doing what you want to do. And like Odebek's routine in that episode is so I don't even know the word for it, because it just like there's that steady sense of elevation in every episode, and then for whatever reason, because you're like, oh, I'm getting excited, and oh, I'm getting happier, and oh, this show is so nice. And then, like, when Odebek's routine, it's nothing but, like, platitudes, mindless platitudes that he just says to himself.
Go the distance.
Yeah, it's
Be
just like...
the best.
I feel like it's every
You
slogan
can
that
win.
Nike has had for the last 50 years.
Be all that you can be.
Yeah, and I appreciate the intent behind it, but it was just so strangely written. And, like, the unspoken stuff between Yuri and Victor, like, there was some strange gear shifts happening there where, like, they were making reference to when Yuri was like, I told you I didn't want you to act like a coach, remember? And like that was something he had said like 3 or 4 episodes before. And I'm like, you can't kind of reference something that was said that long ago, because I'm watching this in real time, you know, and I'm watching it and rewatching it every week. But but that was strange.
Actually, sorry, can I pop in real quick and say, because
Sure.
you reminded me, another character I really liked was Minako, because I felt like it was basically you in the show as the ultimate cheerleader for the show itself in the show.
Yeah, I love all the women in that show, honestly. I really can't wait. My secret hope is that we get a 24-episode second season, so that way we can focus on the women's division and also some of the side character and get more filler.
Yeah.
Filler.
I would be down, yeah.
But because episode 10 is basically filler, but it's the greatest episode in the whole show.
Oh, yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah. And it has the fucking drunk scene, so...
Yeah, but the most frustrating part of episode 12 for me was the very end when, like, it was Yuri and Victor have spoken in skating metaphors for their relationship throughout the whole show, because Yuri is emotionally stunted, and it's the only way he knows how to talk to people is by being like, quad salco equals having sex. Okay, so when do you want a quad salco? Like, they don't speak directly to each other. And so that last conversation where they decide that Yuri is going to remain a skater and continue to be coached by Victor, and then Victor's also going to be a skater, that was very confusing. And then something that also wasn't explained was that at the very end, when Yuri is running towards Victor and they say, we call everything on the ice love, that's in St. Petersburg. So he has moved to Russia to skate, to live with and skate with the entire Russian team. Mm-hmm. And, like, that was something that I didn't know until, like, days after the episode aired, because it wasn't adequately explained because the time was spent on other things. So I love how everything ended up. I just wish it had been done more effectively within that last episode. But that being said, yes, everyone is dying for more. And really, like, everyone is dying for just about anything. They're dying for skating. They're dying for domestic stuff. Like, we love these characters so much. We just want to see them in literally any capacity.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I guess because I've seen so much anime that I'm like, I'm just used to, like, okay, and now here's the final episode that is very, like, avant-garde and disconnected, but, like, is still connected. So it's just like, yeah, that's par for the course. And at the same time, it makes me think about, like, maybe they did that because they thought, well, maybe we're going to get to do more, so let's, like, have some kind of teases for what might come. I don't know if there's been any, like, announcement at all or any implication that maybe they will do more or anything like that.
They just had a rumor has started circulating that season 2 will be coming out in October, but it's unconfirmed.
Okay, well, you know what? I hope so. That would be really cool, and you know, I hope that it continues to inspire a lot of people, because it's been really cool to see it inspiring so many folks. You know, I was talking about this before. What My Hero Academia last year was the show for me that I think that Yuri on Ice was for, like, you guys and a lot of, like most other people, and very deservedly so. But I'm really glad that I watched it. I'm glad that it lived up to what I was expecting and what everybody was saying about it. I really liked it, and you know what? I would love to see more of it, and I'm glad that it has done. And yeah, like you were kind of saying before, Martin, like, without getting too political, with the state of, like, how things are for people in the U.S. right now, and in particular, I think that this did definitely hit at the right time. I'm glad that it hit at that right time. And, you know, I hope that there's more like this in the future. I hope that this, you know, gets other creators and, you know, anime staff thinking, and, you know, maybe changes tunes on themes and, you know, choices of how to go about characters like this for other stuff down the line. So
I definitely wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing more LGBT, et cetera, shows. Because, like, I mean, this show wasn't even just a gay story, like, because it wasn't just about the two of them. It was about, like, how their love shaped their careers together, and it was how everyone else loved them, and also, like, Yuri's choice to express himself in a more feminine manner kind of touched on, you know, people who may not identify with in the gender binary or, you know, whatever else. Like, there are so many subtle things that this show did that literally no other show that I've seen has done in that way. So it's uniting across many different fronts, and it gave a safe space to a lot of people.
Yeah. Any other kind of closing thoughts you guys have, or should we wrap this thing up?
I love it.
I never give up, even if night should fall. Always do my best. I look in the mirror, the king smiles back at me. Well,
oh, I love you guys. Hey, thank you both for joining me very much. Not that I'm sure anybody following my stuff isn't also following you guys, but if you want to plug the Patreon or anything, please, by all means, the stage is yours.
Go ahead, Marianne.
Well, our Patreon is patreon.com/littlecaribo. We have some cool incentives, including a free visual novel of Martin's fanfic that he wrote for charity called Merrick and Bakura Go to Censored Town. So if you are of age, you are more than welcome to get that once your pledge clears. My Twitter is Marianne Miller, spelled Marianne Miller. What about you, Martin?
My Twitter name is at YUGIOHTAS, at Yu-Gi-Oh! TAS. You can watch my stuff if you go to youtube.com, search for Little Karibo. I don't think my channel's name is actually Little Karibo, but you can find it if you do a search for it. It might actually be Card Games
It
FTW.
is, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's Card Games FTW still, I think.
Yeah, the URL is Card Games FTW, but the name itself is Little Karibo.
Yeah.
I changed it to. But yeah, check out Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge. Go to teamfourstar.com. You can find my stuff on there. Upcoming conventions. I'm going to be at Middle Tennessee. When does this go out?
Oh, I don't know yet, but plug April and May conventions, please.
Yeah, I'm going to be at MTAC, Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, from the 14th to the 16th of April. And in May, I'm going to be at Anime North up in Vancouver, right? That's where it is, Vancouver?
Oh, no, North.
No,
I think,
it's in Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
I
maybe you'll see Mac up there. I think he usually goes to Anime North.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I want to see that raccoon. Filthy hacker.
I'll let him know. I'm sure he'll probably come out to come see you if he can.
They'll be there from 26th to the 29th of May.
Beautiful. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you guys. And to everybody else out there, in the comments below, tell us your thoughts on this lovely show that is Yuri on Ice. Favorite characters, favorite moments, favorite episodes, anything at all, any stories of getting into the show, sharing it with friends or anything like that, what your hopes and dreams and aspirations are for a possible second season and beyond. Let us know. And in the meantime, look forward to whatever the next anime I cover on Anime April 2017 is going to be. I don't know what number this one will be by this point, but by now you're probably going to be used to, I don't know which one's going to be next. So look forward to it, whatever. But I've got a whole bunch with a whole bunch of lovely guests, in theory. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.